you not hear me?
Go ahead. I just unmuted. I'm sorry.
All right, I'm calling the meeting to order for May 21st, 2024. With the recording secretary, please take the roll call.
Can you guys hear us?
I can hear.
Okay, thank you. So if you're there, can you take the roll for us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Sue.
Okay, sorry. Commissioner
All right.
Bashand,
Here.
Commissioner Conway,
Here.
Commissioner McCormick.
She's excused.
Okay, Commissioner Morris,
Here.
Commissioner Paskowitz, Commissioner Sadil,
Here.
Commissioner Wagner.
He resigned today, Sue.
Okay, Commissioner Wimett,
Here.
Chairman Zellick.
Here. Since we have one resignation of Commissioner Wagner, I'm going to seat Commissioner Bashant in his stead. And for the absent Commissioner McCormick, I'm going to seat Vincent Morris.
Okay,
Next item we have on our agenda is our wetland agent appointment. Chris Zabidio.
Excuse me, Chairman Zellick, this is Alan Paskowitz. I just stepped into the room.
All right, can we mark Alan present, please?
yes, I will.
Very good.
Thank you.
For a wetland agent's appointment, Eric, maybe you can help me with this one. What are the requirements for the wetland agent? Is there a state
So, yeah,
certification, et cetera?
He was given, he has the link for the courses to take through Clear, and I don't know if he started them yet or not. He has not started them. But that is the only requirement and by your vote.
Okay, I would prefer that you finish the course before we appoint you as our wetland agent.
It would be ideal, but it didn't fit in the time frame.
Okay, perhaps at the next meeting, we'll table this item then.
Well, it should kind of be taken care of because they don't want multiple staff here at the same meeting. If it can be helped.
I can appreciate that, but I am not going to appoint a wetland agent who has not finished the course and is compliant.
Okay.
Thank you. Acceptance of minutes,
You should make a motion at least to table it and whatnot.
motion to table the agent appointment.
I'll second it.
I need a first motion, please.
Oh, yeah, I'd like
Motion
to,
table.
I'd like to table the appointment of the wetland agent until next meeting.
Okay, second, please.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Morris. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any opposed? Very good. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to next item, acceptance of minutes, approval of the minutes from the April 16th, 2024 meeting. Any corrections to the minutes from the commissioners?
I make a
None here.
motion to accept the minutes. This is Commissioner Conway.
I'll second that.
Hold on, I do have a correction. Page 2, Eric. At the bottom, under item V, public participation on non-agenda items. It looks like the line above was repeated. So where it says abstentions, opposed, seeing none, et cetera, I think that should be struck from the record because it's already above.
So you can make the motion, you can amend the motion to as amended here and then
Yep,
just vote on it.
point that out. Okay, that was the only correction I had. All right, we have a second on the motion.
I'll second that.
All right, motion then should be to accept the minutes as modified.
I should say,
Yeah.
didn't I just say that? Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we should accept the minutes as modified.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Morris. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, passes unanimously. Moving on, the next item is public hearing.
There are no public hearings this evening.
No public hearing this evening. Very good. Public participation on non-agenda items. Each speaker limited to 2 minutes. Any member of the public wishing to speak, please come forward. Nobody in the room. Anybody online, Eric?
There's no one on Zoom, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good. We'll move on to the next item. Item 7, new business. This is application IW 24-4 for the reconstruction of the pedestrian bridge within the URA Upland Review Area at 123 Garfield Street, Mill Pond Park. Applicant owner, Town of Newington. Contact Christopher Video. Trouble with this.
The video.
The video.
Right.
Thank you.
Close enough. We can accept that. You're gonna drive the laptop over there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This application is that the town intends to replace the pedestrian bridge at Mill Pond Park over the Mill Pond Park Falls for material deficiencies. So this map that we're showing here demonstrates the area where the bridge is at the pond. So this is the grand map of the park, and it's the specific area where the bridge is. So the new bridge is very similar to the old one.
You
Eric,
want
could you bring up the profile?
this one?
Nope, the profile of the bridge. That one. So this is just for your information, showing what the new bridge will look like. It's very similar to the one that's out there. It's not 100% match, but it's very close.
Is it sit, I just had one question. Is it sitting on the same pier, the same
That is my
column?
intent.
Okay,
That will be determined by when we remove the old one. I was gonna get to that later, take it out of order on it.
sorry about that.
But,
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask the commissioners to hold their questions
Okay.
until after the presentation.
okay. So, let's see. So that's what it's gonna look like. We do have some more detailed plans of that. They're in the packet, but we don't speak to those. So bring up the detailed site plan, Eric. That one. So what we see here is, in order to accommodate this work, we need to bring in a crane so that the scope of the work, primarily, we're going to lift the old bridge up. And when we do that, we're going to evaluate the existing components for their material integrity, and if they are found to be sound enough, we'll reutilize those. We will have to replace the anchor bolts, because the ones that are there are not the same spacing as the bridge that's going to be put there, so they'll be basically drilled and glued, and then the new bridge will be set on top of it. Again, if we have to make improvements or replace the abutments, obviously we'd have to bring this to your attention, because that would be work that's very close to the actual water. As we are now, if you look and see on the graphic here, we have a proposed crane pad area. And I used the 100-foot radius for that because that's a fairly small crane, pretty much the smallest crane we could bring in for this. If it ends up being a larger crane, it may or may not be in exactly that spot, but it will be in this general area. And this has to do with the idiosyncrasies of using a crane to lift something that weighs 10,000 pounds. So in order to accommodate the swing for the crane, the dashed line is our limit of potential disturbance and clearing limits. We don't intend to do work in that entire area. What we do intend to do is clear the shrubbery and the trees from the embankment where Eric is showing us with the cursor on both sides of the bridge. And that is primarily, this is the primary work area here. So that is, to the bottom of the page, you can see the proposed temporary laydown area. That's where the old bridge will be placed and the new bridge will be delivered to and then swung into place. The reason we're clearing shrubbery and trees from the north side of the bridge is primarily because if you end up having any kind of issue with this as it's swinging, should it start to spin or something like that, the process of keeping that from becoming a catastrophe is typically to just lower the boom on the crane to the point where the bridge will be in contact with the earth. That will keep it from swinging at that point. So it's a safety measure for worst case scenario. So we're clearing shrubbery on the far side of the bridge to accommodate any potential issues that we may have while we're actually moving it into place. And then the area to the south is there as the primary work area. So if you're looking at this from the point of view that we're clearing too much shrubbery, it's primarily for the safety of the crane lift during the time of the operation. We expect this work to take very short period of time, a week, 2 max. So we're also proposing to do the actual crane work in late September, early October, when the park's usage has completed all of its primary scheduled functions. And most of this vegetation is scrub and a few trees of value, but not an awful lot. Mr. Tolfeld is here with us tonight in case we need to address any questions about the type of vegetation that's there and compensatory plantings in the park as a result of the work clearing. These are recreation and parks grounds arborist, for lack of a better title. And final item of note, and Eric, if you could pull the top of the screen down a little bit for me. Okay, so along the walk on the north side of the bridge, if you're familiar with the park, you'll know there's a couple of old posts there that had lights on at one time. We think that there's still power active to these to these poles. We intend to add a conduit alongside the walk down to the bridge to provide the power for the winter display, because the way we power that display now is questionable. So by using this construction project as an opportunity to do that as well, that's the intent. So to summarize, what we're doing is just clearing the brush along the embankment for the pond to allow for the cranes work and to add a conduit in a trench, which will not change the volume of the in the upland review area to any extent. And do we have questions from the commission?
Yes.
Commissioner Bashan. Well, hold on, Alan. Commissioner Bashan's got his hand up.
I was just, I don't know if it's wetland related so much, it kind of is. How are you gonna bring the crane in across the field, the soccer field?
There's an area where the fence ends. That will remove one section of fence and roll it back, take one post out, bring the crane in from Willard.
So you can have cribbing down, or,
We will either crib it or any method that the contractor chooses. But
because that is soft in there, I can just tell you, and Steve will tell you from experience.
I mean, we can hope that in October.
It is it's still in the review area, I guess, but I'm not too concerned about it.
Yeah.
But the bridge is only 5 tons?
10.
Oh, I thought you said 10,000.
10,000 pounds, yes. 5
Yeah.
tons.
I mean, a loader couldn't lift it up and just take it away?
Not according to the people I consulted with.
Okay, that's just my curiosity. I won't.
I had a conversation with our board of construction about it. I've got a long working relationship with that company. The president is a friend of mine. So I had him come visit the site with me and say, how would you do this?
Mhm.
So as we were in the process of getting our ducks in a row, that was one of the things I looked at. Said, I want to know from a professional's perspective how to get this done. He said, no, this is a great job.
That was more of a curiosity. I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, Alan.
Yes, expanding on Commissioner Bashan's curiosity, I called the Parks and Recreation Department and came in person a few months ago regarding a board in there that was not of integrity. There was only one board. I ride my bicycle and walk there, and they said they were going to take care of it. Well, that was 6 months ago. So now my question is, we're working into a significant change of the whole bridge. So the curiosity beyond that is, what engineer in the town or outside consultant looked at the integrity of the metal in the bridge, whether it's welded or bolted together, that's needed to be replaced completely, or just take care of the part of the floor. It seems like a large project that could have been taken care of on a simple method of just replacing one board or replacing the whole set of, flooring there. And now we're into a massive degree of crane coming in, taking out the system and replacing it. So I'd like to know who looked at that for the integrity of the metal structure that needs to be replaced.
The answer to that is initially I did. And then when I had a chance to look at it, underneath it where the rust is the most common and the structural members are in their worst condition, I brought in an expert. Because in my opinion, it needed to be looked at by somebody who had more qualifications than I did. And his comment to me when he came up from underneath it was, how old is the bridge? And I said, from what I understand, it's at least 50 years old. And he said, why would you waste money repairing it? And so that's the answer to that question.
Well, I thank you for that because that answers my question. That helps me, give more confidence in the project. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Any other?
Commissioner Sedell has his hand raised, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Sedell?
Thank you. Few questions. The crane pad, what is that going to be sitting on top of? Is that going to be sitting on top of current asphalt that's already there right in front of the bridge? Is that my vision correct where that crane is going to be?
It would be on the asphalt, but not directly. They typically lay a small amount of processed stone, and then the cribbing sits on top of that. Think of 1/2 inch minus stone.
Is going to be any trapping for the crane to come in from the street? I assume you're going to come in from Garfield Street?
We would come in from
Willard
Street, Willard Avenue.
And park yourself sort of in front of the structure as I can remember it, there's no need for any reinforcement for any trucks or vehicles going in and out. That's been
Oh,
planned.
they very likely will, yes, but that becomes a contractor's means and methods, how they keep from getting stuck in the mud. The most common method is there's a product of reinforced rubber matting that they'll lay down on the earth to keep from sinking into the ground until they get up towards where the timber pad will be placed. So that the crane itself will sit on timber cribbing, but to get there, they'll use a rubber matting as an example. If you've ever seen Ask One to do work on the highways or along the roadways for Eversource, they use a mat like this.
I've seen it, yeah. You said you're going to remove some brush. Is anything going to be replaced once they're all done? Is there a planting plan once the bridge is in place to replace what was cut or a new arrangement?
Steve, would you like to come up here and join me?
As you said, my name is Steve Tufelt. I'm with the Parks and Rec Department. I'm not the town arborist. I am a licensed arborist for the state of Connecticut. We currently have no planting plan to replace anything there. So we're looking for what you guys would like to put back in there and to remedy what's there. Currently, it's just 90% invasives that are growing on the existing trees that are being choked out by these invasives that are there. So you have seen us in the past, I'm sure if you've walked around there, if you're residents, that we've been doing normal maintenance there with our forestry cutter reaching down the embankment during the winter and cutting stuff back. And we've had really good success with maintaining what's there and keeping it open.
But is there any way to have a planting plan to keep those invasives are going to reappear, right? They're very consistent in coming back.
So that would be covered under our normal maintenance that we do there, from just the everyday weekly mowing to the bank mowing that we currently do. So you are going to have grass and stuff back in there again, which is what I think we want to see back on there. Again, that's up to you guys, what you would like us to put back in.
All right, so I'm gonna put that back on the town or on the applicant. It's not up to the commission what goes back in there. We need a professional to tell us what should go back in there. So, Steve, when you walked the site, did you take a formal inventory of the plants?
We have a pretty good inventory there. According to what I have, there's only 4 good trees that I would qualify as good trees that are there. There's a large diameter 14 press type oak, pin oak, and then there is a large 16-inch diameter swamp maple that's right on the edge of the pond. There's numerous alders and stuff that are there, but even after we prune all that, that's going to come right back.
Okay. And of those that you think are of value, are those being removed?
They will be. One of the large oak is probably about 30 feet tall currently. And that would have to be removed. That's definitely in the crane swing area.
Okay. Was there anything identified that might be an endangered species or a species that requires any kind of special treatment?
I did not see anything else that's there besides the normal invasive.
Yeah.
that we have.
Okay. So then I would say, or I would ask, based on, the inventory that you have, we would need a professional to tell us what is an appropriate restoration plan.
We could come up with something.
We can. Our town planner went to school for landscape architecture, so he can put a plan together for us.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one more question before I forget.
Commissioner Siddell.
Thank you. There's no need for any type of erosion control plan, heaven forbid. You start work and it starts raining day after day. There's no need for an erosion control plan.
So the reason we didn't do an erosion control plan is we're not going to disturb any of the soil. We're only going to cut the shrubbery down to ground level. So there will be no disturbed soil.
How about for the conduit? You mentioned there was an electrical conduit that was going to be
It would be
run.
installed with a trenching machine that makes a cut about 3 inches wide and about 1.5 feet deep. And the conduit's laid in it and then it's immediately reburied. So the length of time that would be an issue is very small. If we need to put some straw or something over it to maintain it while its seed is taking, that would be a normal process. We would just do that.
Okay. Looking at the staff report, it said that there is 0.07 acres of the upland review, which is going to be disturbed.
That is potentially disturbed, and that is that area that's shown by the dashed line. So again, if you're familiar with the area, we're not necessarily disturbing all of that, but there is potential for what you might consider to be disturbance. So in other words, if the lawn area got tracked over, I wanted to account for that. I didn't want anybody coming back later and say, oh, you're working outside your limits.
Okay. So it's mostly I'll just call it collateral type of disturbance. There's no real soil disturbances that are planned
Correct.
other than the trenching for the conduit.
Right. And if we do have to do anything more extensive, like if we have to replace the abutments that was asked about later, then we would bring it to your attention. I guess at that point, we'd ask to modify the application.
Okay. And then also in the staff report, I see the word scrub in quotes, this scrub vegetation.
Because I don't know what else to call it.
Okay, I just want to make sure that, we don't have any type of definition in our regulations for the word scrub, that it means something.
We do not know.
Okay.
It was meant to delineate unidentifiable stuff that's basically,
Bases and the other plantings that are growing in there.
Commissioners, any other questions?
Yes,
Regarding-
Commissioner Pasquich.
All right, Commissioner Paskowitz, and then we'll go to Commissioner Bouchon. Go ahead, Alan.
Speaking to the abutments, what are the abutments consist of? What kind of material?
Concrete.
I'm sorry?
They're concrete. They're reinforced concrete.
So this is reinforced concrete that was placed when the bridge was placed in?
Correct.
Okay. So you have to determine whether or not they're deteriorated in order to replace it.
Correct. From visual inspection of what's obvious to us, they're sound enough to handle a new generation of bridge. But that really won't be finally determined until we have the old bridge off.
I agree. I know what you're speaking to. I'm familiar with that type of construction. I'm done with this question. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Bashan?
Well, first of all, what, do we know the cost of the project?
Yes.
Roughly?
When we applied for the grant to fund this, we estimated it at approximately $300,000. And the grant that we got was for $240,000 of that.
And then secondly, what is the extent of the clearing? It's not the full, crane swing that you're showing on
It
this.
is,
The full,
yes.
Hmm.
I
all the
do
way
not
down
want-
to ground level, you're saying? Everything in that circle?
Yes. I do not want anything interfering with the crane.
Okay.
I do not want my last act as a professional engineer to be watching that go in the pond. Because it would be my last act.
Yeah.
You
I don't have a lot of experience with cranes, so I would just envision that he would lift, that it would be lifted up over.
Let's just say
whatever's in the way.
It's gonna be a hard call as to whether or not you fire me or I retire. So, one way or the other, I'll be cleaning up my desk before you pull it out of the pond.
Commissioner Conway has her hand raised.
I've got Commissioner Wilmette has a question.
Oh.
Just, why is it unpainted weathered steel? Why isn't it galvanized or painted or?
Well, that discussion went back and forth between the town council and the Parks Board, and the Parks Board ultimately left it with Mr. DiMeo and the rest of us to determine. And we have picked a color known as red oxide, which is a reddish brown, because we feel that it will be a better complementary color to the surrounding green in the summer and white gray in the winter. It'll be very similar to what's there now. It's currently black. Originally it was orange. And we felt that the red oxide was a good compromise in between.
Okay, I'm just curious.
How do you get that red oxide color?
Big one?
How do you get the red oxide color? Is there an acid wash? Is it a
No, it's
paint?
paint. That's the name of that color. It's red oxide.
Okay, because the report here said it was unpainted weathered steel.
That was one of the options the town council favored. And then our facilities director pointed out that the weathered steel will rub off on your hands. And when you realize how many people go there for wedding photos, the idea of having brides and bridesmaids coming off there with a steel rust strip across their dresses didn't appeal to me. So we went back to the Parks Board and said, okay, we didn't really want the shininess of the galvanized. And we now don't want the rustiness of the Cortland steel. So that left us with the paint option, and then that leads us to the color that we finally selected.
Okay.
All right.
Commissioner Paskowitz here.
Go ahead, Commissioner Paskowitz.
From my experience with rust preventive, red oxide coating has been in place for quite some time. It is very effective for deterrent of future rust. So I agree with that process.
Okay. Were there any other commissioners online with
Commissioner
questions?
Conway has her hand raised.
Oh, Commissioner Conway?
Yes, I just wanted to make a recommendation or suggestion that any landscaping that is done, as you suggested, by a professional, have someone who's in that profession. And I would just like to see natives, any replanting that's done, be strictly native plantings. It's just a recommendation on my end.
I'm going to follow up and second that, and also ask that they be Connecticut native plants. I do have a question on the materials of the bridge. There was also the decking, I think, is going to be pressure treated.
Timber, yes.
Okay, any of these materials pose any risk to the environment? You know, the water is flowing under this bridge and, you know, rainwater wash off, whatever. I just want a professional to tell me these are safe materials to use for this bridge.
They're safe materials to use.
Okay, very good. Any other questions from the commissioners? All right, seeing none, can I get a table to, or a motion to table? And then we'll decide at the next meeting what action to take on this application.
I think I'd like to make a motion to table this application until the next meeting for this pedestrian bridge.
Okay, second.
Does there have to be a determination on the public hearing?
We'll do that at the next meeting.
Oh, at the next meeting.
Yeah.
All right, I'll second it.
Second from Commissioner Bashan. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Steve. And moving on to next item on our agenda. Under new business, we have application IW 24-5 for the installation of on-site monitoring wells and limited brush clearing within the upland review area at 549 Cedar Street, applicant Textron Incorporated, owner SKRG Realty, contact Greg Simpson. Good evening. You can just state your name and address for the record.
Yes, hello, commissioners. Thank you. My name is Daniel Saramet, 12 Cedar Ridge Drive, Hebron, Connecticut. I'm here on behalf of Textron, Greg Simpson, the former property owner who is responsible for the environmental investigation and cleanup of the site. I have some slides that go along with the talk, just so we can place ourselves. The property is shown in orange on this figure, takes up the space between Cedar Street, the railroad tracks, and the residential properties on Maple Hill Avenue. Go to the next slide is an aerial. Historically, this property was used for industrial manufacturing purposes. We are working on the investigation and environmental remediation of the site over the last 15 to 20 years, many phases of investigation of soil, groundwater, groundwater within bedrock. And we've also completed various phases of soil remediation and have started groundwater remediation. I'll talk about a little bit later. Just the next slide, I believe, is the soil map, superficial soil map for the site. This area, the northern portion of the site was developed, has a large building. The southern portion of the site is largely undeveloped, but it was historically cleared, used for material staging, equipment staging, and it's primarily fill material in the areas that we're working in. This is a site plan. You can see the area of the proposed work toward the southern portion of the site in the undeveloped area. A portion of the work is within the 100-foot upland review area of an intermittent stream, kind of a stormwater swale, stormwater conveyance. I think the next slide zooms in a little bit more. You can see that intermittent swale and the dashed double line. And then our proposed work, the blue dots, is the wells that we're seeking to install. Most are in a grid just off of the asphalt on the left side of the figure. And then there's two wells kind of separate south of where we've done work previously. So our previous work was focused around all those black dots, where we've done 2 phases of pilot tests of the work that we're proposing. There has been other soil remediation done on the site, some soil consolidation, a lot of soil excavated and removed from the site to the area west of where we're working now.
Right, and just as a point of interest, this commission approved this engineered control a few years ago. They constructed.
just some photos of the area. This is the area where we did some of the previous work in. 2012, 13, we did soil remediation in this area. We dug out contaminated soil, replaced it with clean soil, restored it. That was across that wetland stream. That was based on the soil investigation done previously. And then the wells, the white PVC stick-ups and the black steel stick-ups, those are monitoring wells and injection wells used during the previous 2 pilot tests in this area. This is a view from the north end, standing on the asphalt near the building to take that photo. This area was historically used as equipment storage. It was historically cleared, and after it was, since it wasn't being used, the forest kind of grew in over the last 20 or so years. There's a pretty decent canopy coverage. There are some large trees, but within it, it's a lot of brush, scrub, some fallen trees. So because of our proposed well field, our spacing is pretty generous. It's 50 to 100 foot spacing. We can adjust the wells around a little bit. So our intention is to not take down any large trees, not take down any smaller trees. We don't have to, but we do need to clear a path mostly for the drill rig to be able to get in and install the wells. So we'll remove a lot of the smaller, lower brush, the smaller shrubs to get in and, kind of make our paths. We want to take the easiest path possible. We don't want to take down any trees. We don't have to. And we do have some flexibility in where we put our wells. This is a photo of the north end of that drainage swale. There's a stormwater pipe that comes across the asphalt driveway. There's another stormwater pipe that comes off a catch basin near the asphalt. So it's primarily dry, except during rain events, where there's some overland flow from uphill toward Maple Hill Avenue, and stormwater parking lot runoff that flows into the intermittent stream and down gradient. Yeah, you can see you can see a little bit of dampness toward the middle of the photo, but it's not continuous flow. It's largely dry, and especially during the dry summer months, it's pretty dry. So this is looking south. Our proposed well installation work is up the bank to the right side of this photo. We don't want to go down the bank. We'll stay as far away as possible. We do have erosion control shown on our plan, continuous along the whole stretch, just to make sure that we don't cause any erosion issues into that intermittent stream. This is just part of the application. It's in your application package as well. Just well construction diagram. Just wanted to highlight that all our underground work is 15, 20 up to 50 or 60 feet below ground. So we don't anticipate there's no superficial excavation or filling or regrading. All the work is really done underground except access for the drill rig. These are 2 of the injection wells used during the previous phase. just to kind of describe the injection part of the process, after the wells are installed, they're connected to, we would have a mixed tank and a pump to inject, it's emulsified vegetable oil. So it's kind of like diluted soy milk. And we would use, mixers and pumps to inject that into the wells under low pressure. And that solution would enter the groundwater and cause a series of microbiological reactions that would result in the decrease of our volatile organic contaminant concentration. It's primarily volatile organics like perchloroethylene, trichloroethylene that are the contaminant here that we're trying to clean up. This is just a figure. You can see the concentration plots on the figure. Time is on the x-axis, and trichloroethylene is on the y-axis. And overall, the figures, you can see a decrease in the concentration, and that's a result of the previous two phases of injections that we've done here, starting in 2018 and again in 2022. You can see even further down gradient, you can see that decrease in concentration. So we did the pilot test to show that the biochemistry worked and that we could get distribution in the groundwater and bedrock. And now that we're more confident, we'd like to move ahead toward treatment of that larger area that you see there with more wells. These are just the photos in your application packet. It's just showing that area and the type of vegetation that's there. I guess the only other thing I'll add is that if the drill rig does disturb any of the ground surface, we would seed that as soon as possible after. We're looking to start this work in June, hopefully, and do the injections late summer, early fall. And then we would be in a monitoring period for at least 2 years. We'd go out either every 3 months or every 6 months, monitor these wells to gauge the performance of what we're doing. And that there is a potential to do future remediation with these same wells in the future. That's largely dependent on the results that we see over the following 2 years. I guess the only other thing to add is that the injection work for groundwater remediation, that's something that we've been working with the state DEP on, and that is the discharge to groundwater is approved under a temporary authorization permit from Connecticut DEP.
Anything else? All right, commissioners, questions?
Yes,
Commissioner Bouchant has got his hand up.
Was this previously known, this field of where this work is going to be done, or is this an anomaly? Is it mobilized or moved?
This
Seems to be an anomaly that it's east of the mounding work when, the topographical relief is to the west.
Yeah, the ground slopes down from Maple Hill Avenue down to the railroad tracks and the wetland. The engineer control work was to address contaminants in soil, not in groundwater, metals and other things separate from the release of the volatile organic compounds to groundwater. The area, we're proposing the well installation, and where we did the previous work, that was the release area. There was, likely equipment not being used, equipment that was stored in those areas that released that material.
You're talking about the triple C or the trichloroethylene?
Yeah, TCE, PCE. Yeah. and they're-
Oftentimes it was just blatantly dumped.
Yeah, we don't know about that. We know from aerial photographs that there was equipment storage in that area.
And how deep is the groundwater? If the wells are going down as much as 50 feet, you'll be well into it, the static groundwater at that time?
Yeah, the groundwater, it varies from 7 to 15 feet or so below the ground surface. And the bedrock starts around 15 feet, and that's the target area for the injection work.
So unlike petroleum products, these volatiles, they go below the water. They don't float.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, these particular things are denser than water, so they've sunk down into the water, into the bedrock, primarily in the fractures in the bedrock, and that's where we're targeting.
And the injection process goes on. You said something about you're going to monitor it 2 years out, but will that injection process be going on through that whole time, or is it just until the fall?
No, yeah, we anticipate this initial round, maybe 5 or 6 weeks.
That's it.
Yeah, it's around, we plan to inject around 65,000 gallons of solution over a 5 to 6 week period. And then we would monitor for, a year, 2 years. If we see that more, material amendments are needed, we could go out and inject more, but
the material stays there working then. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's a long-term process. It's a microbiology-based process. Basically, the bacteria eat up the emulsified vegetable oil, eat up all the oxygen, and that creates conditions conducive to breaking down the contaminants. So it's because it's microbiology, it's not instant.
Very interesting. It's great. I'm glad that we have this option.
So
I'm all set.
soy is actually good for something.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's there are other options with harsher chemicals, but this was a better option for this site.
It's considered a bioremediation.
Yes.
All right. Any commissioners online have their hands up?
Commissioner Pascal.
All right, Commissioner Paskowitz?
This has been, from what I'm hearing, this has been an ongoing monitoring situation since 2018.
We did the initial pilot test for this injection work in 2018, and we've been monitoring wells, in this area since then, at least annually. Prior to 2018 was during the investigation phase. So there was, several years of investigation, identifying the extents of the contaminants in the groundwater, and working with Connecticut Deep on an acceptable approach to do this remediation.
So is this a deeper approach than what's been done before in the monitoring wells?
You mean vertically deeper into the ground?
Yes.
Out of the monitoring wells out there, most are to around 50 feet. We do have some that go a little bit deeper. We were focusing more, compared to where we did the work before. We're focusing this work further north, but mostly at the same elevation or same depth into the ground as we did before, which is where we found the contaminants are located.
So is this a further discovery of what you saw in the past to concentrate on continuing this monitoring?
Yeah, we during the investigation prior to 2018, we did have information about where the contaminants were in the ground. You know, which is, you know, basically the area in that circle or in that grid of wells. But yeah, the previous work focused more on the down gradient area to the right of the screen to show that this approach worked. And now we're expanding that laterally to treat the larger area.
So what is the final intention of all this monitoring in the land use area?
So the goal is to reduce the concentration of contaminants in groundwater as much as possible by this method of remediation. You know, it will have to, you know, monitor to be able to show that. You know, if
Well, let me make my question more clear. Maybe it wasn't too clear. So is there a proposal to build on this property? Is that why we're escalating this project or expanding it rather? This monitoring?
we have no plans to build on this area of the property. The investigation and cleanup of the site is required by Connecticut law under the Property Transfer Act. So, you know, because the property was transferred 15 plus years ago, the prior owner is responsible for the investigation or remediation of the contamination of the property. So it's a state requirement to, you know, fully investigate and clean up to the extent required by the regulations. So there's no current plans to build on this portion of the site.
How will you know when to end the project?
Right. So we do have, you know, we have injection wells, we have monitoring wells, you know, in addition to what's shown on the screen, out further on other portions of the site as well. And we will, as part of the remediation program, we'll do monitoring of the groundwater for at least 2 years, likely longer. And, you know, based on those results compared with the current or baseline results, then we'll be able to judge if we're complete or not with the remediation.
So I guess the question to the chairman is, why do they need to come here to us for permission, a permit? Why are they coming to us?
Well, they're coming in because there is soil disturbance within the upland review area.
Yeah, like I said, again, if I can jump in,
Yeah.
you know, we're not building anything. We're not doing, you know, significant regrading or excavation or filling. We do need to do some brush cutting, brush clearing in the upland review area. And, you know, because of the nature of the drill rig, it's a track mounted, you know, machine that may disturb the soil a little bit, but we're not doing any intentional excavation or filling. But, you know, we did want to come before you, explain the project and, you know, make sure any concerns were addressed.
So
And additionally, Alan, I could have had Eric do this as an agent approval since it's pretty straightforward.
right.
But I want this to come in front of the commission because we do have new members and I do want them to be familiar with what's going on at that site and the processes that are being used. Because this is not the only site in our town that has contamination. We see these coming up every now and then. So just, you know, for the benefit of the commission, education wise, I wanted this in front of them.
I agree with you. All knowledge is, you know, helpful with new commissioners and even myself as things expand and change in these processes. Thanks for that endorsement.
You're welcome. Commissioner Bishop?
Yeah, I agree on the educational part too, and it's interesting. And I think it's all positive. I don't think there's any downside to it. And I would just ask, maybe you could educate us a little bit. I get the two mixed up. This is a GB or a GA designated groundwater?
This is a GB designated groundwater area.
Is industrial, which is most of Newington, correct?
I'm not sure, but this area, you know, down by the train tracks and the wetland areas, it is more of an industrial area. So.
In other words, you wouldn't want to have a drinking water well in a GB groundwater area.
Right.
And is there any acceptable level for volatiles, you know, parts per million or?
Yeah, because it is a GB area, not a not a GA area. Yeah, we
10 times higher threshold, is that what it is?
GA is like a cleaner.
That would be the higher threshold.
Yeah, where, you know, you would have to clean up to non-detect or background concentration levels, but you know, the historic use in this area, the fact that you know, people don't rely on the groundwater for drinking water. This is a GB area, so there are still you know, regulations that have to be met for the cleanup and certain numbers protective of human and environmental health, but it's not the drinking water standards.
Commissioner Sedil has his hand raised online.
Commissioner Sadil.
Thank you. Few questions. The data you showed for the black dots, the existing wells, okay? Are those levels considered safe in your opinion? Currently, are those the data that you showed were like the trend, but is that safe minus everything else? Are those safe levels?
There are, out of all those black dots, there is a variety there is a range of concentrations. Some of the wells in the vicinity of where we've injected to previously have gotten down to low or non-detect concentrations, which is very promising. You know, some of those black dots on that figure, like I said, there is a range. Some of them are in areas that haven't been treated yet, or you know, require additional treatment. You know, part of the reason why we're putting those additional 2 blue dots toward the right-hand side of the figure to treat additional areas. But yeah, overall, the results have shown positive effect and pretty promising.
Could you do me a favor and go to, I think you had a photograph in here of the monitoring wells. I just wanted to show the commission again what those are. Because commissioners, you will see these around town in different locations, different sites that are contaminated. One that comes to mind is the Fafner property off of Willard Ave. In the woods, typically off-site, you'll see these. Basically, it's a pipe coming out of the ground with a cap on it.
Yeah, there's usually a steel stick up with a cap that's lockable, and inside that there's usually a 2-inch PVC riser that is the well. So the ones with the steel stick ups are more for longer term monitoring wells. For, you know, the injection work where it's expected to be a shorter term work, we might just leave the PVC, and then it makes it easier to connect onto with the wellheads. And you know, since they're not as long term, there none in this photo, but there's also the like in paved areas like asphalt, you see those road boxes, and the monitoring wells have a triangle on them usually.
Yeah.
Or at Home Depot, you might see it where there was a former factory there. You'll see them in the floor of Home Depot. Even.
Yeah, gas stations.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see there's a few in the parking lot behind the old Dunkin' Donuts in the center of town, because the garage that was back there in the dry cleaning.
Mr. Chairman, if I continue.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So how does this work? The injection, you're injecting your amendments and your solution And these steel wells, you uncap them and the water shoots out, basically. You're using pressure via these injection wells, and then your water shooting out and you're capturing that water, or there's some truck that comes in and scoops up that water. Is that the way this works when you?
Uh, we might be on a little bit different page, so I'll kind of go through it. We are these, we'll drill the wells. The groundwater level is 10 to 15 feet below the ground surface. In this work, we are injecting water and emulsified vegetable oil solution into the wells. I think it's 3,000 or so gallons per well. We'll inject that in under pressure fairly slowly, like a gallon a minute or less. So we're injecting solution into the ground under low pressure, 5 or 6, 10 PSI usually. And
those are at three, excuse me, those are at 3 locations. You got 22, 3 of them are injectors and the 19 are just monitoring wells, if I understand. You mean to interrupt you, but
I think it's
injector wells that you're shooting this solution's going into the ground. Is that correct?
I think it's switched. It's 19 injection wells and 3 monitoring wells. I apologize if there was any confusion on that, but it's mostly the field of the injection wells, and then a smaller number of monitoring wells. So it's mostly injection wells.
So look at this picture here. You see the white PVC and your 3 steel. Explain that to me. So the steel ones would be the ones you were actually putting solution into the ground.
No, just in this particular photo. In this particular photo, yeah, those steel wells. In this particular photo, the ratios, just because of where the photo is taken, that the ratio doesn't match the whole site. So, we have that one PVC stick up that we would inject to, and just because the way the photo is taken, there's 3 of those monitoring wells with the steel casing on it.
Okay. So what physically happens? You take the cap off. Is there enough pressure to suck the water up, or are you dipping down to get the sample? How does this work?
So like when you uncap the well, the groundwater level is 10 to 15 feet below ground. So when we would go to sample the wells, like from the monitoring wells, we would put a pump or tubing down the well and pull out a sample.
How much water is that? A couple of gallons, or?
Yeah, for the monitoring, for the sampling, we purge a couple of gallons and then take, a sample of a liter or 2. So we, purge out a couple of gallons to make sure we're getting the water from the formation and not what's sitting in the well. And we do that, we've been doing annual sampling on the site for, 10, 15 years. And then as a follow-up to the injection, we would do either every 3 months or every 6 months for at least 2 years.
Would you expect any spillage? I know you talk about the hay bales and silt fence and all. You get any spillage? I noticed, is that an issue, or that you need
No,
an
we don't
erosion
really.
control plan?
Yeah, we don't really anticipate any spillage of, the groundwater when we're doing the sampling or the well installation. When they do the well installation, it's all the material, the groundwater and the rock and soil cuttings will be containerized. When we do our sampling, we keep everything, it comes right out from the well into a bucket. And then similar, when we do the injections, it goes right from our mixing tank into the well. All our connections are good. I think the other photo might show, you know, we have a little drip bucket there near the wellhead just to, you know, to catch anything that does drip. So so we, you know, look for no spills, no spillage, but you know, worst case, if anything does spill, it's you know, primarily water and vegetable oil. So you know, nothing too hazardous.
Last question. I see this project going in phases, right? Just sort of moving away from that swale, the intermittent water course. Do you foresee going even further out, another stage in this project based on the progress today, move further out away necessary?
I can't rule that out, but based on the data that we have to date, we're targeting, you know, the largest area that we know about that has the contamination.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else, Commissioner?
I have a couple of quick questions.
Commissioner Bashan, then we'll go to.
Yeah,
Commissioner Ouimet.
Just let me know if I summarize this correctly. The term is injection, but really you're just dropping this material in there at atmospheric pressure, basically. And that's how it equalizes, even though you're putting 3,000 gallons, it sounds like the last commissioner had kind of alluded to, that it would force it out, but we're dropping it in so it could equalize in the water table.
Yeah, we're injecting it fairly slow under low pressures. You know, I think our maximum is like 15 PSI, but you know, we've on some other sites, we've seen it where, you know, you can just kind of dribble it in and, it, you know, goes in pretty quick by itself. Or, you know, we don't want to apply too much pressure, you know, just minimize leaks and safety and potential for all that. So fairly low pressure. And yeah, you know, within a couple hours or by the next morning, everything should be back down.
I mean, you visualize a little tube like this and how you're going to put 3,000 gallons through there, but it's because it's dissipating underground.
Right.
And then you had mentioned that you had an agreement with the state for discharge. So I thought you were actually removing some water, but you're not. Or what's the discharge for?
Yeah, no, it's kind of misleading. That's just what the state permit is called. It's, you know, because we're discharging into groundwater
into
for
the groundwater.
groundwater
Okay.
remediation. So it's
Okay.
it is just the name of that state permit.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Ouimet.
Just a couple of quick questions. So Textron's paying for this.
The former property owner, yes, is responsible for the
And the current
environmental.
property owner is SKRJ Realty.
Yes.
And they're, what do they got to do with Beacon Industries?
They are affiliated. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same people, but they're, you know, SKRG Realty is the property owner. Beacon is the company currently
You know,
in the doing
something
business in the
there.
building.
They're the current owner of record.
Okay.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Really help me.
All right, seeing none, motion to table.
I'd like to make a motion to table this until the next meeting.
Thank you,
Just
Commissioner
see-
Ouimet.
I think I'm going to say what you were going to say, that they were anticipating working in June. So
I don't believe we can take action to approve this evening.
Not unless you want to make a motion that the agent can do an agent approval. That would be up to you, and I could go through the process that way if you guys are satisfied.
I'll leave it, I'll ask the commission, is the commission comfortable with having Eric handle this as agent approval after what you've heard this evening?
Commissioner Pastor, yes, I agree. Agent approval.
Okay. Other commissioners' comments?
you know, I kind of prefer, as you said yourself, that we had heard this case, but I had heard this application. I was just thinking that we didn't have to approve it tonight, but at least clear the, so in other words, so the very next meeting, we would have been able to clear it, but if they want to start in June, it'd be the second, third.
Right, if we allow Eric, he can move this along without
Even quicker.
meeting, right.
I guess since we've already heard it, then I'll go along with it. And
Yeah,
you were
I'm
considering doing that to
Right.
begin with.
I was completely comfortable with having Eric do this originally. But I did want everyone here, you know, for educational purposes to hear this.
I appreciate it.
I agree.
All right, then can I get a motion to,
I would just say a motion to allow an agent approval for this
a motion
application.
to allow agent approval for in site.
I'd like to make a
application.
motion to allow agent approval so that they can get the project going in June.
Very good. Second, please.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Morris. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks for
Very educational.
clarifying this.
Thank
whole
you.
thing.
No
This is-
problem. Happy
You
to
know,
do
when
it.
I saw this, I was like, oh my God.
Thank you.
But what, you have to do it in the summer because it's not frozen, the case.
Yeah, it's, yeah, it's a lot easier to do it in the summer. I'll do some of the work in the dry season, but, yeah, if we go, into late October, definitely some
Right,
problems.
okay.
Thanks again. All right, moving on to old business. We have application 2024-03 revised for the demolition of an existing garage and construction of a 24-foot by 40-foot detached garage, 12-foot by 12-foot building addition, and a 40 by 40-foot paved driveway within the upland review area at 54 Northwood Road. Applicant owner contact Michael Campbell.
So at the last meeting, as discussed, the applicant was not present. You called for a public hearing. When I discussed with the applicant after the meeting, I was informed he was going to be gone for the month of May. So he gave us an extension, granted an extension to the commission. So the public hearing will open at the June meeting.
Okay.
I still anticipate we have outstanding items that have been requested from him, from his professional.
Does he have a professional now?
I think he's gonna use the one who did his survey,
Okay,
the last I heard, but I haven't spoken
Yeah.
to him in
all
a
right,
month.
so I have some follow-up questions and maybe we can pass these on to him. So at the last meeting, Commissioner Siddell brought up a very good point, regarding future maintenance on that swale, or I guess we call it an intermittent water course.
Well, that intermittent water course is off of his property.
It's off his property,
Correct.
but if there were to be maintenance, would the structure that he's proposing be in the way of, getting in there? Is there any kind of a right of way on that property?
No, there's no right of way on any of those properties on Northwood to access that
Okay,
strip. That is owned by the actual Northwood Plaza where Best Market is. So they
Okay.
could always access it from their property behind Best Market.
all right. So, regarding this application, I do want to make the comment that I've seen no expert testimony for this application regarding the impact to the wetlands or to wildlife. I did take a walk to kind of familiarize myself with that intermittent water course or swale, whatever we want to call it. And we just recently had moderate rain, and the intermittent water course was at capacity. Now, my understanding is the town of Newington has an issue with stormwater capacity currently.
Especially in that course.
Okay, so that, like I said, after a moderate storm, that thing was at capacity. It was near the tops of its banks.
I have seen it that way.
Okay, very good. Thank you for confirming that. So my concern now is in the future with climate change, the state of Connecticut is, having some types of projections for the future. I know that they're already kind of producing some maps for the coastline and the impact of climate change. Is there anything similar happening for inland wetlands and stormwater that I'm trying to think out towards the future? Is this wetland,
So-
because of climate change going to increase? Will the size of that wetland, go beyond the boundaries that it has today physically, and then, potentially push into his backyard in the future? So that structure is potentially now part of the wetlands.
I am not sure if the state has quantified it in the way you're asking, but I can state that they have just reissued a new revision of the soil erosion control manual, which was adopted and put into place in March and takes effect in September. And the noteworthy part of this change to this commission is that the water quality volumes have changed from the first inch of rainfall, the first, I want to say, inch and 3/8. That sound right?
Yeah, about right, yeah.
So what this does to the designers of a stormwater facility is to make them treat as previously the 1 inch, the 1 3/8 inch. So the volume of treated water has increased by roughly a third. And that doesn't directly answer the question about how much we think we're going to see for an increase in rainfall. I can tell you my personal observations in the year I've been here in Newington. We had 8, if I recall correctly, high intensity, short duration storms last summer. That was the reason I was investigating things like this particular swale, where we had a relatively minor amount of rain, 2 inches or so, but where you get 2 inches in a 24-hour period, it doesn't overtax our infrastructure. When you get 2 inches of rain in 40 minutes, that channel and others flow full. And it's a matter of how that rain comes. One of those events, I was returning from a site visit to a construction site, and our own parking lot out here between us and the police department had so much water in it that it overflowed my shoes. So it's more of a matter of how the rain is coming and not whether or not the volume of it is increased. How we deal with that going forward is a matter of some dispute, and we are in the process of trying to procure grants and other funding sources for dealing with this through CIRCA, which is a collaboration of UConn and private, being channeled to us through CROG, and through other grants we've applied for through Army Corps and the Congress. So if any of these grants are approved and we are finding our projects funded, then we have this opportunity to maybe really make a recommendation about that water course and others, and what we need to do going forward to flood-proof our neighbors. That's the ultimate goal, is to try and reduce this, whether it means we have to start looking at funding upsizing of our infrastructure to handle the higher volumes in shorter durations, which wasn't the past tendency. We built for 25-year storms, and a 25-year storm, in my opinion, is not the same as it was 30, 40, 50 years ago when our infrastructure was being built.
Okay. Now, when I saw that swale at capacity, I immediately started to think about this property and the amount of hard surfaces that are being proposed, that are, basically the upland review area today, other than the existing house, is a vegetated surface, a lawn, probably absorbing, I'm going to say X amount of water. I don't know what it is. I'm not a professional, but with the addition of all these hard surfaces, again, not being a professional, and I need somebody to tell me what's the impact on the wetland of all that additional hard surface and all that additional rainwater going into that system. Is there a negative impact on the wetlands? What are the stormwater, capacity concerns? I'm struggling with how do I ask that question and get a professional response so that my concerns are addressed.
So, I mean,
So 1 second, I want to let Eric respond.
if I can request, if this is what the commission wants, the applicant to hire a soil scientist to make that determination, I don't know how he'll feel about that. But if,
Well, I'm not concerned about his feelings. I'm
no,
concerned
I
about
understand.
doing the right
I'm saying,
thing.
I'm just saying, I can request that if that's what the commission wants.
But is that the right professional to answer those questions with
I mean-
the stormwater volume and the amount?
Well, that would be more of a
surfaces?
professional engineer, like Chris. Not that he's going to do it for him, but a PE.
Okay,
We can request that as well.
all right, well,
I mean-
whatever the proper professional is.
Okay.
I would like that information presented to the commission. I don't know how the other commissioners feel about that.
I think that's a good idea. I
Thank
think
you,
that's exactly what I would
Commissioner
ask.
Matt. I see Commissioner Morris has his hand up.
I had
From looking at the type of project, I sort of echo your concern because there's a lot of hard surface there, great increase of it, which means probably more runoff. But how much, I don't know, and whether that would be detrimental to the wetland below would probably depend on how much there is. And I think your concern is well taken.
Yeah, so again, my concern is, I don't know if it's detrimental. It might be beneficial. I don't know what the right answer is. And my concern again is the wetland boundary, if there is, over time with climate change and his additional hard surfaces, is the wetland boundary going to move, encroach more into his property?
But it does seem to be the one key issue on the project is the additional hard surface.
Mhm.
Everything else seems like, well, it's a matter of aesthetics.
Right. And are there ways to mitigate any impact? So Commissioner Bashan.
As far as the mitigating the impact, I want to see that. And he's already proposed it, but behind that garage, that interceptor swale, there's no specifications to it, but I'd like to see that made as robust as possible, like 2 feet deep, 2 feet wide. And I think that would intercept the majority of runoff from that property.
Again,
And he could have his gutters if he wants them.
right, but I would say we need a professional to tell us, is that adequate?
That's
Or
just basic math. They would figure that out pretty quickly.
right, is there a better solution?
They would take the impervious area and just basic math with the rainfall and what the capacity of that thing is, so.
I believe Commissioner Pasquich, you wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, I want to return to your initial comment regarding the soils and the impact of water flow increasing with potential climate change. What we don't know, and I think what you were alluding to, is that we don't know the soil series type that's on the land of his property now and the percolation of it. That's all indicative of the initial runoff on the property regarding the runoff of surface that's going to be applied. If the runoff is going to be the same, it makes no difference if the impervious material is on that land. We have to determine, or someone has, I would think, would have to determine the soil percolation is there now.
I would agree, and that's why when I said what the absorption rate is now, I said X, and because I don't know what it is. I'm not a professional. I couldn't tell you. Right.
No.
So again, I guess, Eric, we're looking for a soil scientist. You're thinking is the right answer?
I think the PE is probably the best way. I mean, he's going to be able to quantify those numbers you guys are looking for. Hey, right now without this, it's X, like you said, and now with this, it's going to increase the runoff by X. And then PE is a professional engineer. Some of them have different disciplines. Even a straight civil engineer should be able to handle that, I would think, Chris. Some specifying structural and all these other types of things, but I think a regular professional engineer should be able to give that evaluation.
I'll leave it up to you to.
I'll contact him and let him know. The turnaround time might be a bit short to get somebody in there and evaluate it for him, but I'm sure his surveyor may work with a PE. I'll talk about it with Chris.
And again, I apologize for not knowing what the right professional is.
Right. I mean, if you want to know about the flora, fauna, the impact to the well, and then you want the soil scientist. So, these are the things, and again, this is a homeowner doing something, versus a larger scale project. They're going to have the PE all ready to go. They're going to have the soil scientist ready to go.
And would a PE be able to tell us if there is a detrimental impact to the wetlands? Because ultimately, that's what we need to base our decision.
He's going to be able to, or he or she is going to be able to tell you
Water volume.
Yeah, the quantities of water they're going into it. Is he going to be able to tell you it's a detriment to the wetland? Probably not.
So he helps us, but
he gets you part way there.
Right, he gets us part way there, but according to our regulations, we can only deny or approve or deny based on the impact.
I
of
can
wetlands.
request an evaluation for the functions of the wetland, what is the
Based on-
functionality?
Based on what the PE says.
Well, no, I can request that they have a soil scientist evaluate it as well. Again, these are requests, what he chooses to do or not do. You know, that if he comes and says, I'm not doing any of it, you guys can choose to deny it and everybody moves forward.
Okay. All right, any other commissioner comments?
Just a
Support that?
comment. I did, take a walk or drove back there. It wasn't during a rain event, so I didn't see it overflowing, but the one thing that became obvious right away, this was constructed out of convenience for the construction of the plaza there.
Yeah.
It runs perfectly parallel to the side of the parking lot. And it seems to be upslope towards this, subject property. And I saw all hardwood trees and everything in there, so it doesn't seem like it's a wetland uphill or upgrade from that. But back to what you guys, when you saw it overflowing, eventually that water has to get to Mill Pond, so is there a culvert under Main Street that needs to be cleared? I mean, there's no reason that should be overflowing, so.
It does not
it's a
need to be
huge pipe.
cleared. We investigated it last summer.
Okay, so it just
And it's
needs
not a
that
matter
channel,
of-
maybe the channel needs to be cleaned up a little bit.
And we did that last summer. We went in there with highway guys.
But I mean, along the whole back of the
Well,
building, that's
there's a-
private property.
It's private
Yeah,
property.
private,
So
I
limit to
understand
how
that.
far we'll go. We used to have a general permit, I understand, that gave us the right to go 15, 20 or so feet.
Yeah.
I don't believe we currently do, so we don't go any further than we have to.
Do
But
we
at
have
this
any
pa-
control over private property, like requiring cleanup? I don't know. That's a
If the-
question for the engineer, for
If the
the.
private
for the
property
chairman.
had an easement in our favor, then we would have clear right to do maintenance work. This is not one of those cases. It's a water course through a hard bottomed surface, I believe a paved surface, that benefits that plaza. And it also takes the water coming down off of Cedar Mountain when it gets down that far. And that's probably the biggest contribution is the whole west face of Cedar Mountain and the area that gets to this part of the property. So when we're looking at the mature trees and things like that, that's more an indicator of how long it's been since that area was graded last. The construction of the plaza, more likely. From what I've seen, some of those trees are a good 12 or more inches in diameter.
No, they're huge, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think that was graded at all on that, south of that water body. And I'm sure the water body was always there. I just envisioned it might have been somewhere further to the north and conveniently they just pushed it to the edge of their project.
Well, there's quite a large water body behind the apartments as well that feeds that. If you don't know, if you haven't been back there, that's
On that
quite
little pond that's
significant.
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sure, I mean, like you said, it's coming off of the mountain, so there always had to be something there accommodating all that water.
Was that plaza area at one time a wet meadow?
I do not know. I've seen the old vellum plans from the early mid sixties. The apartments and the plaza were developed together by one developer. I don't know what it looked like prior to that. I mean, I could look at old aerials, but
Developed
Be interesting to see, yeah.
Prior to the Wetlands Act.
yes.
We can pull up some old DEP aerials.
Yeah, we could look, but again, the plaza was constructed pre-wetlands. So if there were wetlands there, they were probably filled and whatnot.
I
Just
just
like,
kind of following up on Commissioner Bouchant's, remark about, how is it that swale came to be?
Mhm.
Could have been that was all wetlands at one time and there's just filled and that just became the channel.
We have had some interest in redeveloping that plaza. Excuse me. And I would imagine if any of that actually comes to the point of making an application to this commission and planning and zoning, this would be something we'd look at very, very closely to see if they can contribute to mitigating some of this runoff issues we're having. I would rather do that than build another barrel alongside the existing one to handle the excess flow. That was the original plan. Peter Arbor, when he was town engineer here in the 70s, drew up the plans for the culvert that goes under Main Street and over to the pond. And it was a double barrel pipe at the time. For some reason, they only built one.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris. I'm already seeing quite a benefit of you being here this evening.
Glad to help.
Thank you. Any other commissioners before we table this? All right, no motion to table?
I'd like to make a motion to table this to the next meeting and when the applicant can be here.
Second, please.
There a chance he's gonna be here?
Second.
The second from Commissioner Morris. All in favor? Say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. All right, moving on to next item is public participation on agenda items. Any member of the public wishing to speak, please come forward. The room appears to be empty of public.
Yeah, and there's no one online, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good. We'll move on. Communications and reports. First one is agent communications.
I really don't have any, there've been no agent approvals. There's been discussions with a couple of upcoming applications that will probably be agent approvals.
Okay, any update on that situation over on Main Street?
I have not heard from the town attorney or anything. He haven't responded.
Okay, just, so the commission's aware, I had a couple of my neighbors pull me into, there appears to be some filling that took place, behind a property on Main Street. Abuts my neighbors. They complained to me. I observed it. I turned it over to Eric. Eric issued a cease and desist order. One of my neighbors again grabbed me earlier this week. There is continued filling going on in their area. They're throwing some brush or vegetative material back there. So
Despite the cease and desist?
despite, and it's a sizable amount of filling that they've done. So just looking for an update on that. And I think at this point, Eric, this becomes an enforcement issue. I don't think it's anything that should come before the commission.
This is one of the deep lots that goes all the way back towards the brook.
Yeah. All right, moving on, council liaison communications. Councilor Rada is present.
I have a couple of things.
Okay. Councilor Badraco is absent. She has another meeting this evening.
I expected that because I know she's normally here. Good evening. Just a couple of items from our last council meeting, which was last Tuesday, and our next council meeting will be next Tuesday. The town manager search, just a brief update. Myself, Councilor Mankey, Councilor Page, and Mayor Trister make up this search committee. Resumes are coming in. And we did have a meeting yesterday to review the process as we move forward, as the resumes are collected. So it is moving forward. Of course, we all want it to move forward quickly, but we all want to make sure that all our ducks are in a row and that, the process is moving appropriately so that we can be provided with the best information and ways to make this selection process. So more to come. We did have a presentation and a discussion about the town's IT and the town website by Scott Charlo. I think it was eye-opening for many of us because we know we hear time and again about the problems that folks have accessing various components of our website. And we had questions. He had not only answers, but a lot more information for us. General consensus that the website is outdated, that it is difficult to navigate, that there's a lack oftentimes of continuity in design. What we did find out that I think was news to many of us is that we have a contract with Civic Plus and that we are eligible every 3 years for site redesign. So we would really like to move forward with that now that we know that we have that option. And we're trying to figure out the best way to do this, which would include seeking public opinion, whether it's focus groups, whatever we decide. But we really do want public input and as well as input from the various departments, boards and commissions, so that we can have a sense of some of the requests and then move forward. If this company is going to do a redesign, well, what can you do that will help remediate some of the issues that we've been having over time? So we're hopeful, and that was good information that was given. The third that I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, which I'm sure I don't have to bring to your attention, is we introduced the property acquisition of 28 Garfield Street, the current OFI building, proposed as a site for an emergency operations center here in town, which would also include, that is about 5,000 square feet, is what the EOC would take up. And additional space, there's the full basement, which would be storage space for a variety of items and materials and resources. And then there is space available also for other municipal needs, possibly moving another department that might be kind of maximized with their space and moving that into that space as well. So we have a grant from FEMA this was all begun in 2021. So there is a $1 million FEMA grant, which is for renovation. It was either build as new, the way the grant was proposed was build as new, or to renovate an existing structure. So this would be renovation, obviously. So $1 million from FEMA for renovation, $833,000 from CIP for that the town would put in for renovation. 1.8 million is the purchase price now for the structure, the building itself, which includes the building, the parking lot, and the adjacent wooded lot, which we have no intent, nor have not had any intent of doing anything but keeping that as green space, since we are all concerned with the limited amount of green space that we have. So this will go to public hearing next Tuesday. We will have that. And I think we're all very interested and really want to hear what the community has to say. We've already been hearing some information, some questions that arise. And so we really are encouraging people to come out to the public hearing and ask your questions, provide commentary so that we as a council can pull this all together as we work through this process. And that's my report. Yes, Commissioner.
Where did that go?
Excuse me?
What happened to OFI?
There is a company still there. It was sold, but a new owner or a company moved into the space. It is still OFI.
They need less space than what they have.
Exactly. And what we are doing is there's still a negotiation, and more I'm sure will come next Tuesday at the council meeting. Those folks have a lease. We want to work with whoever is in that building currently, as well as helping to acquire another space at the end of their lease here in town. So it would be a nice, smooth, easy move, easy handoff, maintaining a very good business that we've had in town for many years to remain in the community.
I had a question.
So you
I'm sorry.
don't want to keep them in that building. You want to move them to someplace else.
Exactly, but that they have a lease, and we want to honor that lease. So they will be continuing there, paying rent. I think the maximum is 9 months, but within that time, that hopefully that process of movement will take place. So then we can come in. There are stipulations in terms of time frame for this FEMA grant.
Right.
And we're pretty confident that there can be an extension if proven that work is being done and there's forward progress with the acquisition and the renovation.
Commissioner Bashan?
Yeah, I had some thoughts on that, OFI, process, but I don't want to put you on the spot because I have a lot of questions about whether it
Thank you.
should go to referendum and this combination of these different funds.
Yeah.
But that's not what I want to talk about. And I thought for sure you would bring up the site walk up on Cedar Mountain because with the former Cedar Crest Hospital property, and I thought that would be something of interest to this commission.
Unfortunately, I was working that day, so
Okay,
I was
you
not
didn't
able,
go.
I was
Okay.
not able to take that site walk. I wanted to, and what I plan to do, as a matter of fact, at least one other counselor and I plan on going up and doing that. Unfortunately, it won't be with folks from the state.
Mhm.
I don't think, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if there is anything definite or specific that the state has in mind. But from what I've heard from other counselors and from the mayor, folks that did that walk, that it at least allowed people to envision what is there and what might be possible and just kind of get a sense of the situation.
I was there. I can make some comment on it if you like. The state was there, the state representatives there. They wanted to know what the town's vision for the site was, what their input was going to be. They had their thoughts on moving forward with some of their own projects and potentially turning over portions of it to the town maybe, or some kind of partnership with some open space and other things. So they were all just general discussions. There was somebody from the governor's office was there, as well as the real estate guy. I can't remember his name as well, that handles it. So
So it was a pretty serious situation, pretty serious meeting. Governor's there.
representative from his office, we've had other discussions since COVID started about that property, and they kind of, in the past, they've started and stopped, so. we'll
Any
see where it goes.
consideration whatsoever to keep it as total open space?
There was some discussions, but there's a couple of the larger hospital buildings need some serious remediation
I understand.
internally, and they also have their power plant across the street in Weathersfield, with all the underground utilities going there. It was originally built, so there's a lot of asbestos wrap pipe and other stuff that's underground.
The only thing is that I could imagine any partnership is going to involve housing and
I believe
I
that's
don't
what
think
the
it's the
state.
best fit for that location, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
There's planning and zoning hurdles they would have to go through because it is zoned as public land.
On the main building, didn't they do a remediation already?
They started some remediation on one of the main buildings and completed one floor.
And then
Thieves did the
Lost
remediation.
We don't know.
they lost
That's what we were
interest, they
told by the
just said, "Yeah, we're
state.
doing this project, now we're not." Well, how does that work?
Blame it on COVID. Oh, COVID hit, we can't do anything. I'm only joking. I don't
Oh, I
know.
saw them up there doing stuff,
Yeah, they did say, yes, they did some stuff.
and then they stopped.
Right, yep.
And there are, how many
They're like a
buildings
contractor,
up
they just
there?
walked in one day.
So there's
I know there's the hospital. I mean,
there's the two hospital buildings, and then there's
are there residences? up
there are
there?
6 or 7 residences that are still standing that the state is thinking about potentially trying to get a developer in there to just rehab them and sell them as is. I don't know if that's gonna be the case. They're nice houses, they're nice location. Again, there's lots of hoops for them to jump through to get those things cut out. I don't know. So they were gonna evaluate that.
I think it sounds like there's a lot up in the air. It was a tour, a guided tour, and a lot of questions and possibilities from all sides,
Right.
but nothing concrete that we were told about or that
Right, there's
we
been no
learned
formal
from.
application, no formal discussions. It was just a kind of an informal thing. And I don't know who's supposed to get back to who. Whether council has to get back to them or the state's gonna reach out at some point, I don't know. So,
I tried to participate myself, but I was a little late.
yes, you were.
I'm fascinated by the idea that we would contract with somebody to remediate a building and then just let them do the first floor and then say, well,
Well, that was the
We're
state. Yeah.
Yeah,
Can't
that's.
speak to that.
There was no never mind. I'll find out the other way.
And Commissioner Bashand, I encourage you to come to the public hearing. And you can ask questions and
I
make
have a lot
commentary.
of, I'm a little skeptical about from what I've heard so far.
Okay, and hopefully there will be more information provided, but I mean, this is why we have all these chairs and we can open that back wall.
Well, that's my point though. Isn't that what EOC is? It's supposed to be just a big meeting room. And I said, we have meeting rooms here. The police department has meeting rooms. The fire departments have meeting rooms. I mean, that's what I understand of it so far. I haven't looked too much.
So it
into
sounds like we're getting the comments that would be good at the
Yeah.
public hearing.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. That's all I have. I don't know if there are any other questions, but again, encourage you and encourage others to please come. Even when there's not a public hearing, please come for public participation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, moving on, next item is Pond Life Research and Education. Alan, I believe this one is yours.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to know, going back in time a few months, when I brought up the concern of slash and timber in Mill Pond and the cleanup of it. I haven't heard anything back from this commission or Eric Hinckley in a report that it was going to be proceeded to the superintendent of Parks and Recreation. I'd like to know where it stands because I have been circling that in the last few weeks and I saw an enormous piece of timber floating in the water. It's beyond the timber in the water and the brush. People fish there. It's a known place to fish. And I can't imagine how many people are getting snagged just as a recreation value as well. So I'd like to know where we are in getting this cleaned up.
Okay, so Eric, I think you turned that over to Parks and Rec.
Yeah, so you asked the same question last month, Mr. Paskowitz, and I did say that I spoke to the supervisor for Parks and Rec and let him know, and they said he would address it. I can remind him.
Yes, I think they need a significant reminder sooner than later. Please push this forward somehow.
All right, anything else to report?
No, thank you.
All right, very good. Moving on to adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion
Second
from
that.
Commissioner Bashant, second from Commissioner Wilmette. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Have a good night. And again, thank you, commissioners, for your participation. A lot of very good questions this evening.
Thank you.